First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
It's a good word, mixed martial arts fans. Thank you so much for joining me today on the very first edition of the Revamp Eternal MMA Insiders Podcast. My name's Luke and I'm your host. And to say I'm excited to be here today, a bit of an understatement. Could be because today is the first edition, of course, of the episode. Could be because of the first guest that we have today on the show. A man that I've spoken to in the past at length, a man that I've covered ahead of his title fights and the subsequent title wins that he's had as part of the Eternal MMA Mixed Martial Arts organization. He's making his return on February 11th at Eternal 73. Everyone's very excited to have him back. I'm talking, of course, about the fighting pride of the Wilkes Martial Arts Academy, Astro Boy himself, Mr. Stephen Erceg. Stephen, how are you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's good to have you here today, man. Now let's just jump straight into it. We haven't seen you inside the cage for, over 12 months now, and we'll move a little bit into, obviously there was a missed opportunity for the Dana White's Contender series that we know about. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just give me a bit of an insight as to what you've been up to for the sort of the 12 months that we've had in between fights. Yeah, we still obviously we're training and we still teaching a little bit with your classes and that sort of thing. I know that you were teaching kids at the Martial Arts Academy. What's it sort of been like for you in that last 12 months, both from a mental standpoint and maybe even from a growth standpoint in terms of your martial arts?
So during the 12 months, I mean, I've been teaching same amount as usual, training the same as usual, but it was definitely like disappointing and like disheartening. Like I had that opportunity for Contender series, and like missing out or not getting the opportunity or like losing the opportunity because you've done something wrong or because you go there, you lose, like you can live with that, like you give your best, but to lose something like that because, well, I still don't know the reason. Like it's very disheartening, like demotivating, all that sort of stuff. But like at the end of the day, like I can't do anything about that now. So just get back to it, keep working, and like make myself undeniable, sort of thing. I've definitely gotten better over that 12 months. Like putting in the type of work that I put in, I don't think it's possible not to get better. But yeah, not having fights, like you can really focus on that technical development rather than always just trying to kill yourself. So yeah, definitely improved a lot technically, and looking forward to putting it to the test on the upcoming Eternal.
So just on that opportunity that you had for the Dana White Contender series, obviously a massive opportunity, and of course, as you alluded to, something that obviously hurts you and disappointing not to sort of get. And you said that you don't really sort of have much of an idea as to why it didn't go down. There was some talk about visa issues and things like that. So what you're saying is you're not quite sure as to why maybe the visa didn't sort of come through for you. That there's not a lot of information around why it didn't sort of come. Like no one's sort of telling you why it didn't happen whatsoever. No,
I was told nothing about why it was turned down. Like I don't have a criminal history or anything like that, so that can't be the reason. I don't know if they're unwilling to tell me why or they just don't tell people why, but I don't have a reason, and nobody's been told in my circle at least why it was denied. So it's frustrating.
Just moving a bit beyond that, I know we've got the fight coming up at Eternal 73, so that comes first and foremost. But has there been any sort of traction as to whether, if you've got an opportunity like this again, or when we do get the opportunity again, has there been any talk about any potential visa issues going forward from now?
So they just basically said that if it were to happen again, they'd be confident that I get a visa this time. So I don't know if they have some like insight and that they're not willing to share, or they just think they can do more. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on. They seem confident that if I got the same opportunity again, that they could get me one. So yeah, take them at their word, I guess.
So UFC 284 gets announced, and of course the card we got coming up for Eternal 73 is the night before. A lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention gets drawn around that. I know in the lead up to the fight, there was a lot of people campaigning for you to get the shot straight onto that card. I know you posted some on social media saying that you liked that shot. A lot of friends, family, coaches, training partners getting around you. Was that ever sort of close to happening? Did you ever get any sort of contact from the UFC or anyone, that might sort of have any insight to that? How close were you to potentially getting that shot, if at all?
Not close. At least from what I was told. So we had my manager and stuff were talking to the UFC and stuff about it, and they said they'd keep me in mind, but nothing remotely close or anything like that as far as I was told. So yeah.
Do you plan on Do you plan on attending the event at all? Like, obviously, everything goes well at E73 for you. Were you looking to actually attend the event just as a fan?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, obviously we'll see how I feel and stuff after my fight, but yeah, the intention is to go to the fights the next day and like watch Volkanovski do his thing and hopefully bring home another championship.
Now, we'll talk about the upcoming opponents shortly, but I just want to talk a bit about, the potential opponents that you've sort of had here. Now, it sort of seems, of course, in the divisions around Australia and the sort of the local scene, it can be quite hard to sort of get yourself matched up, especially when you're at the top of the food chain, like you are, such as yourself, a former flyweight champion. Have you been struggling to get opponents? Did you feel like that you might have got a fight locally? Obviously, you had the missed opportunities we touched on with the Contender series, but has it really been that hard to get an opponent in the lead up to this? As we said, it's been over 12 months. What's been going on there?
Yeah, so I've had Ben and Cam and the Eternal promoters can sort of vouch for me on this one, but they were looking all over the place, asking plenty of people if they'd fight me, and I got a lot of no's. So I was trying to fight at the end of last year. I was trying to find a fight basically as soon as I knew that Contender wasn't an option anymore. But people either injured or not looking to fight me, or I don't know, just not lucky, I guess.
Did you get the impression that people that you could have been fighting, maybe people that you're asking for, are people that your promoters were sort of suggesting? Do you get the feeling that those sort of opponents were potentially ducking you at all?
I mean, it's hard not to look at it that way. To start with, it's like looking for anybody. It's looking for the best of the best, and then at some point, it's like, well, we just need anybody. Like somebody say yes, please. And that was supremely difficult. So it's hard to go through all of that and feel like you're not getting ducked a little bit. But what can you do?
And imagine it'd be hard for someone such as yourself. Obviously we know that you've had fights fall through in the past, title fights, that have seen you step up and fight at a higher weight. Obviously Cody Haddon comes to mind in the fight that you took there. So, from your end and your perspective, you're taking these fights on short notice, so when you're sort of feeling that maybe opponents are not coming into you on even fair notice, I imagine that's going to be frustrating, right? Yeah,
super frustrating. It's like MMA's supposed to be a tough guy sport, and it seems like there's no tough guys at the moment. So, just train, and eventually somebody's got to say yes. Like, put enough pressure on somebody, they have to say yes, you'd hope so. Yeah.
Do you sort of have a look around Australia and by extension New Zealand, I guess, and look at the region and sort of see, potential opponents around that region, flyweights? What do you sort of see when you look around and see the state of the division itself? Obviously you have rolled through a couple of contenders in the past. You've had the title defense. Obviously you've had the title win. Yeah, you've had a couple of those fights and that nice winning streak that you've got now. When you sort of look around at sort of who's around, like, do you see actual viable contenders that are ready to sort of go that are on your level?
No. So all the people that I felt like were viable contenders, I feel like I fought them. And the guys that are left at the moment, they're not there yet. So hopefully in a few years, they keep fighting and they move their way up and all that sort of stuff. But at the moment, I just feel like, the flyweight division, there's not many challenges in the division anyway.
So we move along. Obviously, we did find you an opponent. Your promoters found you an opponent in Soichiro Hirai, if I'm pronouncing that right. Now, looking around, there's not a lot out there on the guy. He seems to be a 4-1-0 fighter out of Japan. When did you first find about this opponent as a possibility? What did you think about it when it was brought to the table for you as an opportunity to fight him?
So I think I found out about it 2 or 3 weeks ago. As I said, they were looking for lots of people. So I had a lot of offers and I said yes to all of them. Unfortunately, lots of people said no to me. He came forward, I said yes. I was lucky enough that he said yes to me. And as far as what I think of him, I mean, he's got, I think, a black belt in judo. He's got decent ground game. His stand-up is okay. So I just think I'm a better, well-rounded athlete than him. Like, he's definitely dangerous in a few areas, but I think I'll go out there and put on, show my class.
Yeah, given that the guys have actually had to go out and find someone, internationally to bring in to fight you, when you sort of look at and what you sort of know from your upcoming opponent, do you sort of look at him as a kind of a guy that might be above a level of what was even available to you now? I know we touched on the fact that it's been hard to find someone to fight in the country, but when you look at him and you sort of see his level, where do you think he'd sort of rank if he's fighting on the Australian scene today? What can you tell us about him if you know much about him? Does he sort of rank you up there with the potential opponents that you could have faced, that you have faced in the past? Like, what sort of level is this guy on, to your knowledge?
I reckon my guess would be he's not quite Shannon Ross. I think Paul Loga, Shannon Ross, I think they're like, if I was talking about like the best in the division, that would be like the two I go to. I think he would be around Loga, but lower than Shannon Ross. That'd be my guess. He's a tough guy. He's fought some experienced competition. So even though like 4-1, like it's a good record, not a whole lot of fights, but he's fought guys with over 40 fights and stuff like that. So he's definitely a worthy competitor, and I think he'd rank well in Australian MMA.
Now, just speaking on Shannon Ross, I want to circle back to obviously the fact that, Shannon's got his opportunity now in the UFC, obviously fighting at UFC 284, and all the respect in the world, of course, for Shannon, fantastic opponent. I'm not too sure what your personal relationship is with Shannon, but for yourself, can you sort of feel, maybe forgive yourself for sort of looking at someone you've beaten quite handily in the past in a title fight, see that he's sort of gotten his opportunity. Now, I know he's paid his dues, of course, and had a lot of fights, but do you look at Shannon getting his shot in the UFC and have, maybe a little bit of envious feelings there, of course, given that you hold a win over him, a title win nonetheless, and you're not the one getting that shot?
Yeah, it's hard not to be a little bit envious. When it first happened, the feelings are stronger, but like at the end of the day, his journey and my journey are completely different. I'm happy for him. Like, he's worked for a long time to get to where he is. Obviously, he had a cracker of a fight on the Contender series. Had whatever the disease he had, where he's, I don't remember what it's called, but like, he went through some adversity, and he's fought a lot of good people, and I'm happy he got his shot, like for him and his family and that sort of thing. So try not to be too envious, but that's my thoughts on it, I guess.
So obviously we don't want to get too far past that. Obviously you're still looking at an opportunity, and from what I would imagine, given the sort of the landscape of the division we have here and what you've touched on as far as who you think sort of available around the country, and the fact we're bringing international opponents for you to essentially fight. Everything goes well coming up on February 11th and you fight at Eternal 73. What's the next logical step beyond that? Again, not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but in a perfect world, you get the win, you look good. What comes next for you? Do we look at the Contender series again? Do we look at going straight to the UFC? In a perfect world, paint me a picture here. What comes next for you beyond that?
A perfect world for sure would be win this fight, or the UFC, matchmaking stuff are there, and they realize that I can compete at the highest level. They sign me straight to the UFC. But like that being said, Contender series is the other option. Like, I'm happy to go back there and fight whoever I need to fight to make sure that I make it to where I want to be. So now,
it's a tried and tested question, but we always have to ask, of course. Now, when you look at your opponent and you envision yourself getting your hand raised, how do you sort of see it going down? I know you touched on before, that you feel obviously going to be too good for him in all areas, but are you the kind of person that likes to envision the way you sort of get yourself the win, or are you just going to sort of let it come to you as the fight plays out?
I go through a lot of different scenarios in my head. So I can see myself knocking him out. I can see myself taking his back. I see lots of different scenarios in my head. But at the end of the day, fights are so dynamic that it's hard to plan for any one single thing. I go out there with skill set, and I have a few things that I'm looking to do, but whatever comes. And I do think I'll finish him. Just we'll see in what way he wants to be finished.
And it's got to feel good to be fighting back in Perth, right? Obviously a Perth boy, we're fighting in front of the home crowd. We're expecting a lot of Stephen Astro Boy Erceg fans in the crowd.
Yes, I imagine it's going to be very loud. Like, usually I'm fighting another Australian, so there might be like mixed crowd or whatever, or like mostly for me and some for him. But I imagine this will be completely pro Erceg crowd, and it's going to get pretty loud, I imagine.
It should be pumping, man. And on that, tickets available from eternalmma.com. Fans can pick them up there, of course. I know that you posted something on your social media about fans being able to get from your social media. That's still available. Fans can still get access to that.
Yep. So if same thing, go through Eternal, go to Fighter Fan Club, put my last name in, and then just select however many tickets you want. And that will go through, so Eternal know that you're supporting me, and it'll be much appreciated.
So return of Astro Boy Stephen Erceg for Eternal 73 on February 11th. As we said, still get tickets at eternalmma.com. For those that aren't attending the event, you can, of course, watch the event live and exclusive on UFC Fight Pass. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be a banger. Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here today, man, for the very first episode of the rejuvenated Eternal MMA podcast. Talk to you in the next one, man. We'll see you on the other side. All the best at Eternal 73.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, brother.